So, uh, Jim Barber was nice enough to call this a master class. This is my class on how to use the Toastmost suite of tools more effectively. Um, at the moment, I'm particularly making a big deal about the mobile app, which I'll be talking about more in a few moments, and how that hopefully makes this a more powerful solution overall, how you can use the app in combination with the tools on the website. A funny thing happened along the way to creating this app. I think it's a little bit like taking a keynote length speech and trying to squeeze it down to 5 to 7 minutes. A lot of you know if you're writers, if you're speakers, squeezing things down, compressing them, making them tighter tends to make them better. And so I think I've gone through that kind of a process with tightening up all this content that I've created for trying to have a digital interactive agenda and make it fit on a mobile app screen. That actually allowed me to go back and make some of the website tools better. So I've been getting good reviews recently on the website tools for the agenda as well. This stuff all works together. My name's David Carr. I am the Toastmost.org guy. I joined Toastmasters in 2010, shortly after it became a leader in the club. And when I wanted to promote things, and I wanted to have some digital tools to promote things, I decided that Free Toast just wasn't good enough for my club. That we could do a lot better using the WordPress solution, which is a more of a professional environment. If you go to the New Yorker magazine website, as an example I've used for years, but I think it's a pretty big deal that the New Yorker trusts their brand to WordPress. Now they have a very customized, very nice version of WordPress. Not everybody else has as nice of a WordPress site. And the reality is that tools are tools. You can use them well, you can use them poorly. That's kind of up to you. But having better tools gives you more to work with sometimes. And so WordPress, because it is used by people around the world, it is one of the most popular ways of building a website. Not that there isn't plenty of competition out there for that, but I think last I heard something like 40% of all the websites that you will encounter are based on WordPress. You go to the Walt Disney corporate site, not the sites for buying tickets to the parks, but their corporate site for investors and people who want to find out about the company is a WordPress site. So definitely some big shots. Use the software, contribute to the software, and make it better. But as I mentioned, I'm actually paying a little bit more attention these days to talking about the app and talking about how these things work together. So is the app a big deal? Well, I gave a speech saying that it was a game changer. And I wouldn't necessarily have been bold enough to say that, but I had somebody else say it for me. This is Alexander Mate. Some of you may remember he was number 2 in the World Championship of Public Speaking a couple of years ago. And when I talked about being able to manage the agenda, members being able to sign up, officers being able to organize meeting from their phones, his remark was game changer. And so I'm doing my best to make it a game changer and make it productive for you and for everybody who uses the software. Of course, it often happens that as soon as you get a compliment, you also get an ask. And so uh, Alexander happens to live in the French region of Canada. He would like to have more elements of the website available with some translation available. So have you considered other languages? Well, fortunately, I was able to say yes. There's actually a lot of facilities for translation that are available as part of the WordPress platform, and I have been able to adapt some of those to fit in to how we present the content on the web. um, and in the app. Um, so just a moment about me. I am a writer, an editor, and digital creator. Mostly a writer and editor, but I was working for Internet World Magazine when the web first started to become a big deal, when it first started to come out of academic circles and be used for commercial things. And so I've been on that for a long time. These days I work for a company called SimilarWeb. I'm not a journalist anymore, but I work with journalists who want to understand trends in the digital world, and I help provide them with data. And so this is the Club Awesome website. We've been able to jazz it up a little bit using these WordPress tools and also offer features like guest registration. And I'll be showing you some of the other features in a little while. I'll be showing you things about how to design these sites more effectively and also how to use them for agenda management. So for both marketing and for the functional part of running a club website or running a club. And so we have tools like a web-based version of the Toastmasters application that people can fill out through a web browser. They can type in their answers. They don't have to download a PDF. They don't have to upload a PDF. They fill it out, and when they get to the end of the process, you can pop up a notice to say, here's how you can pay. So digital payment for applications as well as renewals is something else that is available in the system. The way you get one of these sites is you go over to Toastmost.org, not Toastmasters.org, Toastmost, my little corner of the web, and you're going to fill out an application form. Basically, it asks you for your address that you want to use. So it'll start out as at least as a subdomain of toastmost.org. So that means it's the subdomain is the part before the first period. So Online Presenters has a website at op.toastmost.org. Yours can be myclub.toastmost.org. Now, if you have registered a domain, if you've gone to GoDaddy or whatever domain registrar and you've registered a domain for your use, it can be used with the club website. It's just a couple of extra steps later. But while you're first kicking the tires, trying it out, it'll be at myclub.toastmost.org. And I've had to redo this sign up form recently, but it does prompt you to pick a basic design. There are several different designs available. And from that design, you can do a lot of further customization. And I'll get into something about how you can go about doing that. And then again, I'm showing the running app over here. This is a snapshot of the App Store page for the iOS version. And so you can find the app on either the iOS Apple App Store or the Google, what they call the Play Store, but it's basically the Google App Store for Android. Either one, if you search for Toastmost, you can find it. I'll put a link in the chat, a link that you can follow. There's also, if you are using a Toastmost.org website, there's a promo that is appearing in several different places saying, check out the app. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to a QR code and show you how to sign up. In fact, I'm going to show that to you quickly. So this was recorded in advance, and part of it was recorded using an emulator on a PC, which is the same thing that I'm showing over to my side here. Part of it was recorded off an actual phone because when I wanted to show the QR code functionality, I had to record that off of a real phone. So you'll see both of those methods here. But first you need to get the app. But once you have the app, you want to set it up to work with a specific club website. Now, if you don't have a club website, you can set You can put in any email address and demo.toastmost.org, and an account will be created for your use, and you can experiment with it that way. So that's what I'm showing here is signing up to have an account work with the demo site. I type in my email address, I click submit. Actually, one of the things I should do is make my video larger for everybody. Um, and so I will go over to my Gmail. I open up the message, and there's this link to click. It's called the magic link. Probably should change that to a bigger, more prominent button. But anyways, you click on this link. It's going to open up the app for you. It's basically going to enter the information for you, a security code that allows you to access that website. And then from there, you can go to sign up for roles. If you're signing up for a speech, there would be options to choose your path, your level, your project, and to put in a note, a title and a note for the Toastmaster of the day when they introduce you. So these are all features that also exist on the website, but that's just how you would do it within the app. So I want to show some more detail about how the app works along the way. And then some of this is also going to be choose your own adventure. Because if you're here to learn something in particular, or there's something in particular that has been frustrating you about how the software works, this is your chance to talk to me about how we can make it better. Now, I made my video and the screens that I'm sharing full screen, but I do have a way if you're not able to see something, I do have a way of sort of magnifying it, so we can zoom in on the app or we can zoom in on the web browser to show whatever it is that we want to talk about. So I'm going to take a breath for a moment and ask people actually two questions. I'm seeing mostly familiar faces here. Is there anybody here who has not used Toastmost website before, who's just learning about this stuff for the first time? Any newbies here? A couple. Okay. All right. Um, so again, I've given you kind of the motor mouth version of I wanted something that was better for my club. It's been good promotionally over the years. So I used it originally at my home club, Club Awesome in Coral Springs, Florida, and later at Online Presenters Toastmasters, where the whole enterprise was online. So we needed to have a pretty good website. One of the things that excites me about the app, though, is that it's also useful for an in-person meeting as opposed to an online meeting. And it's very useful for a hybrid meeting because you can have people in person using the app. You can have people who are remote using the app. And a lot of the functions are available through either the website or the app. And so one of the things that I will want to talk about a little bit more is the voting tool, which is something that's been in the web version for a while. And it's now sort of surfaced a little bit more prominently in the app. And so I've been encouraging people in my meetings to get the app and be able to vote on best speaker of the day. I'm doing some work on having a different category of vote, which is a signed vote. So if you're voting in a new member and you need to have a record of who voted yes and who voted no, let's face it, people never vote no, but theoretically, if they voted no, you'd have a record of it. But you could have a record of everybody who voted so that you could show that you made quorum for that or for budget or anything like that. Um, it's a little bit new. Maybe still needs some bugs shaken out of it. But the voting on things like best speaker of the day, we've been using on a pretty regular basis. So I said I was going to take a breath and ask for, are there any questions about things that you want to make sure that I cover before we get through this today? Anything that you particularly want me to focus on? You can unmute, you can shout it out. I will be trying to watch the chat from here and there.
Yeah.
I see. Can the mobile application be used in district contests for the judges to count the votes? Um, Probably not. I actually had a whole web application built out that was specifically for contests, and we were using it at my club. Some districts used it. And then when Toastmasters International updated the rules at some point, they put in a paragraph saying there can be um, there could be no use of external voting systems. And I was pretty unclear about what an external voting system is, but apparently it means what I do. Any kind of digital voting system that's not created by them. And so, of course, my first response to that was, gee, you should create your own digital voting system. Or I'd be happy to support you in creating your own digital voting system. Uh, Crickets. So for that point, maybe you could use it to vote on a district business, though. That might be a possibility. So far, I have mostly clubs using the Toastmost service per se, but I do have District 62, which is parts of Michigan, and I think one other state. Anyway, District 62 has 62 hosts that is running on the service. Mostly, I have club websites. But if there are no further questions, I'm going to dive into a couple of things about the app, and then I want to circle back and also talk about some basics about working with the website.
It looks like Andrew had a question.
He answered it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
The other Andrew did have a question, but it was all about the basics, David, of the website. So glad that you're going to circle back to that.
All right. All right. Well, we'll we'll get to that. Yeah, and please whack me upside the head because sometimes I do get too enamored of talking about the really complex things and don't cover the basics. So I'm going to try and be a good tonight. Let's see. I wanted to talk more about the app. So I thought I would zoom in on the app a little bit just so you see what the concept is here. Um, I'm trying to simplify this down to basically a few icons. If I want to take a roll, I click on the plus button. If turns out that I can't make it that night, I'm going to click on the red X and take myself off. And it might go back and forth a minute here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. There's also this mode that I call the suggest mode. It's supposed to be a little paper airplane icon. And so this is where I'm going to go in and I choose a member. And Abraham Lincoln's already signed up for something, so I can't choose him. But we'll choose Clara Oswald. And we say, I'm nominating you for a counter. You haven't done it lately. And this goes off by email when I click send. Hello. Successfully sent message. So the paper airplane appears if it's a vacant role, nobody signed up for it. It also appears if it's a role that I've taken. And actually, I just realized I can't make it that night, but I want somebody else to sign up for the role, and so I'll give them a nudge that way. Or I get a text from somebody. They don't have time to go into the website. They don't have the app, but they're going to take the role. So I can go into this edit mode and plug that person in. And basically all these things that I'm showing you are available on the website. And maybe I should show you that for a second. So I am, let's see, make this a little bit smaller here for a moment so that you can see the layout. This is, it was opened up in the vote counter tool. So I have these buttons across the bottom. They're sign up, which is basically for me to come in and sign up. But again, there is an edit button so that if it turns out that I can't actually make it, I can choose somebody else off the list and plug them into that role. Um, or I guess the more realistic scenario is where it's not me, but it's somebody else who we need to make a substitution. So we can do all those things from here. Um, either take it myself. So take it myself would be click on the plus sign, and remove myself would be to click on the X. And sometimes it takes a minute to sort itself out. You can do things on the web that you can't do in an app. There's this idea of the mouse over effect where it pops up with a little explanation. Well, you can't do that on a phone because there's no mouse. I mean, there is here in my phony environment, but normally you're pressing with your finger. So the icons have to be a little bit more self-explanatory. But still, we have all of these things. And then down the end, we have organize. So organize is where I can do things like change the number of speakers. So it turns out that somebody's giving a long speech, and we really only have time for 2 speakers, but it's still going to take up 21 minutes because somebody's speaking for twice as long. So we can make those adjustments. And as we do, all these times that are showing on the agenda will update as well. So these are functions that are available on the website. The organize functions are available on the website, not in the app. There's also a whole organized screen where everything's opened up for organizing. And this is good if you're moving things around, you're reorganizing the whole agenda. Usually you do table topics at the beginning, but you're moving it to the end. That is not in the app, and I'm not sure it should be in the app because we want to keep the app experience relatively simple. So, let me check one more thing. Let's see. I think. Okay. And Dr. Byrne asks, is it easy to attach a photo of a member in the application? Okay, I can show you that in a moment. I can show it to you now, I guess. Let's see. So one super basic thing about the website is there's sort of 2 parts of it. There is the front of house, public facing part of the website. And even when members are logged in and they're working with the agenda, that's more the public part of the website. But there's also this dashboard. So the dashboard is the real behind the scenes stuff. And try and adjust this. And there's this, I think that's, hold on a moment. Make more room, not just stretch this, but let's see. There we go. All right. So I'm logged in as an administrator here. So this is a long menu. Uh, Now, a regular member would only see a couple of options here. They would see this menu up top that is labeled Toastmasters, and that's where they can go in and they can check their own progress. So that's all the speeches that they've given in the club as recorded through the agenda. Part of the idea behind this whole setup is to capture as much information as possible and use it in as many different ways as possible. So allowing people to go back through their old speeches. And if they put in their path, their project, their title, then that information will be recorded in the records. If they didn't put that information in, it will not be recorded in the records unless you, as VP of E, have taken the time to go back and add some of that stuff. So I'm getting a little bit long-winded again. If I go in here and I go to profile, so even the most basic users would have an option to look at their own profile. You go to profile, and if you scroll down to the bottom, there is an upload avatar section here. And so I can put in a different picture of myself. And I've got some pretty ugly ones. Let's see. This one I kind of like. So I can select and crop avatar. Call that good enough. And that will now become the image that will show up on the members listing of the site. Now, not everybody uses this. Let's see, wait a minute. Let's save this first. But I always like in my clubs to have a part of the website where you can go and see some of the people who are logged in. See, Jim Barber is in here. I think because he signed up with the app, he's showing up as a member of this phony club. But we can see that my picture now has changed to be that one. So, and you know, there are other ways that you can use these things too, but we'll get back to some of that later. All right. I wanted to show you the voting tool because I think that's kind of neat, and it's one of the reasons for using the, let's say, for using the app. Okay. So there's a menu across the bottom, which is a common convention for mobile apps. And the tabs are home, which is the basic sign up screen. There's agenda where you can see basically similar to the printable version of the agenda that you would get off the website, a rundown of everybody who signed up. There's also a way of emailing this out to everybody in the club. As long as their emails are in the member directory, we can send it out to all the club members this way. And we can add a note saying, hey guys, really need to sign up for that next meeting. There is a timer in here. And one of the things that's cool about the timer is we can see that Abraham Lincoln is giving an icebreaker and he's scheduled for 4 to 6 minutes instead of 5 to 7. 5 to 7. And it also has the evaluators who are signed up on the agenda as 2 to 3. And we can, you know, put in an arbitrary number. Actually, if we scroll down here, there's actually an option to put in any club member as a table topics participant. And again, that would come in as 1 to 2 minutes. And then the voting tool, which I already mentioned a little bit. So again, this is going to, this is your tool for setting up the ballots. If you are the vote counter for the meeting, it's going to load in by default the people who are on the agenda to speak, they will be on the ballot as potential best speaker. But, you could also have a situation where somebody shows up at the last minute and volunteers to speak. And so I'll add another person here and I'll publish this. And I should be able to show you so here's the web version of this. So, and that has already updated to show John Lawson as the third speaker. And if I can actually find that window, let's see. Here we go. So I can click on him over Thomas Jefferson, and it will come back and say that I voted. Now the web version actually allows anonymous votes. I made the distinction earlier between anonymous votes and signed votes, which you might want to have for something more formal. On the app, everybody's signed in, basically. We know who they are. On the web, if it was a signed vote, there would be a prompt saying you'll need to log in to vote on this question. But in the app, going back to the app, I also have the ability to toggle over into the voting mode. And if I want to vote as well as everybody else, I can cast my vote and it will come back and say voted. So that's similar to what anybody other than the vote counter would see if they looked at the app. They would just see the choices that have been published for them to vote on. But if it's something like table topics, where you don't know who's going to speak, well, then you can just go through your list and plug in table topic speakers one after another, and still you could have our guest speaker who we want to add to the ballot. So we'll add that person and publish. And let's say, there it is. You see that it automatically reloaded on the website, and now that vote is available for table topics as well. There is a refresh button, so if it doesn't automatically update in a timely way, you can click on the refresh button. I'll be honest, the bigger question I've run into, or the big problem I've run into, is that I forget to click that publish button, or I get distracted by the brilliant table topics and don't keep track and keep up with plugging people in. It works best if you just sort of record them as the table topics are going along. You just keep adding people to the ballot, and then you publish it when table topics are over. So that's, I guess not everybody does votes like that in their club, but if you do, this could be a handy thing. Let's see. What else is in the app? There is also there's a button down here that says more. And if I go to more, I can go to a couple of different things. I have a progress report. So this is where it's going to load in an app version of that record of all the speeches I give. And it takes a few minutes to populate. And honestly, mine is full of a lot of fictitious speeches because I've done too many of these demos. But hopefully for other normal people, this would be a useful thing to be able to go back and see your speech record from the app. And there is also a place on the website where you can do this. And I mentioned the translation project, which is something I had started working on a couple of years ago when we had a club in France that wanted to have a French translation. So I actually had a little bit of a head start on French. And so we fleshed this out a little bit, and it would be, obviously it would be good to add Spanish. It would be good to add a few other languages. And if I do that and reload, I should start to see some French showing up in the user interface. So we can see that it's not agenda, it's ordre du jour and miniature for timer. And not everything is translated, but a few things are translated. And there's actually an option through this translation screen to see which things we're missing that we don't have translations on, and you can add them. You can add them in initially just for your own club, but I'm also keeping track of what people add so that we can flesh out these translations and make them more useful. Let's see, gone through about 45 minutes of this, and I haven't gotten to any of the website basics. So I probably should do that. Although, let's see, I'm trying to look at the chat. The system printed out notifications as you start up an agenda. Is there any way to, I don't know what you're talking about, Andy.
Right now, you showed how it works within the program and updates things. If you look at Basecamp and the websites that TI has, they have spots where you can store your evaluations and give feedback to other members of your club and track that through the Basecamp management section. Is
Yeah.
there a way of uploading stuff to those things?
Not yet. I mean, given a little bit of technical cooperation from Toastmasters International, many things are possible, but I don't know. And I don't know how. I'm not sure I would find that useful, those Basecamp features, frankly, but maybe other people do. And if there's some way that I can hook into that, I'd be happy to do it. But as of now, there's nothing going on with that. Let's see. I wanted to go through some website basics. So let me actually take the app off the screen entirely. I'll take me mostly off the screen entirely. And let's see. I think I want to make sure you can see. There we go. Okay. When you were logged in and you were an administrator of one of these clubs, you will see this black bar across the top of the screen. So this has a number of different editing options and also design customization options. So basically, when I'm on the home page, I have an option that says Edit Page, which would bring me into the editor and allow me to change the text, change the images, change the headline, all those things. There's also this option that says Edit Site. And if I ran the zoo, they would not call it Edit Site. They would call it something like Design Site, or because I always should know better, often click on the wrong edit button. I click on Edit Site when I want edit just the document. But let me take you into how I would edit things on this home page. So I'm going to go up to Edit Page, or else I could also go to New and create either a new blog post or a new page. But let's do Edit Page just so we can see it with some existing content. Oh, okay. This is the part that normally you don't see, and I'm still in French. When I when I set the preference on the app for French, it also set the website preference for French for me, which is maybe not what I want, but I'll survive. So I go into the editor and I have the option here of changing the headline. And then as soon as I get down below the headline, I am in the main editor. And here, one of the things that I want to try and cover a little bit is the concept of different kinds of content blocks, which is a big thing in WordPress these days. And the agenda is also a set of specialized content blocks. But your basic content blocks are a paragraph if you just start typing. So this is a paragraph. And if I can bring this over to the side. Sorry, I'm getting frustrated by my own controlling setup here. That's it. Okay. So we can see in the sidebar that this is a paragraph, and there's certain properties that I can set for any basic paragraph. So I can, actually, I'm going to save this and reload. So I want to get out of French. All right. So I changed, I think I changed my preference back to English. Hmm. Okay. Well, I'll have to I'll survive in French for a little while. So the paragraph can either have text colors changed, so we can see that that changed from black to blue, or we could make it true maroon using the suggested different Toastmasters color palette options. So we're trying to keep you out of out of trouble with the powers that be. So I can make that true maroon with a yellow background by just using these controls in the sidebar. So that's a basic paragraph. These little plus marks allow me to choose different kinds of content. So if I want to go from a plus mark to a headline, I'm still getting French. This is going to make me a little bit crazy. And just the point is that there are different options for all of these things. I can also type the slash at the beginning of a line and get options for different layouts. So this is a 2-column layout where I can add something on the left and something on the right. So we'll add image here. And then we'll add some text over there.
And sorry, David, you get those options by typing in a backslash?
Forward slash. You might have encountered something similar in Slack if your company uses Slack or you've worked with a company that uses Slack. I'm actually going to go out of here for just a second. I'm going to find the profile screen and try and get myself back to English. Let's say. And oh, language is might have changed. Did I change the whole site default? I want to change my personal preference back to English. And we'll go back into the editor. See, I am using up a lot of time doing this. So there are actually at least 3 ways of adding a new block. There's that forward slash shortcut where you start typing the name of whatever it is you're looking for. There's the plus over here, and then there's a plus in the upper left-hand corner. It'll be insert wherever your cursor is at the moment. But this actually gives you lots more options. And in fact, instead of just including an individual block, I could include a whole elaborate layout in that spot. And so this is a way of bringing in some pre-designed things. They're professional designs. Uh, they were actually provided by other web developers, and I modified them to have WordPress images embedded in them. I mean, this is all boilerplate stuff. It's not necessarily what you would want to use to emphasize how wonderful your particular club is. But these are available shortcuts. And one of the things that has changed in WordPress over the past couple of years is that they do have this edit site option. And the idea here is that when we go into edit site instead of edit page, we can modify the entire template using these WordPress blocks. So there are blocks that organize things in columns. There are blocks that organize things in rows. They all map under the covers to what's called CSS. Cascading style sheets is a basic web technology that you would mess with if you were doing things by hand coding a website. But a lot of this has been kind of automated and simplified through the editor. So if I go to edit site, I won't see the specific content of the page anymore. I'll just see a placeholder for this is where the title goes. This is where the main content goes. This is where I've defined the header of the page to have what's called a cover block, which is an image in the background and other elements are embedded inside it. And this might be where I'm getting into things that are too complicated that you don't necessarily need to know on day one. My recommendation is to choose one of the boilerplate themes that looks pretty close to what it is that you want and not necessarily mess around with a whole lot with customizations at the very beginning unless you're really ambitious and into it. um, but I've seen people do incredible things with this technology, like reproduce the Apple website or reproduce TechCrunch magazine or news magazine, web magazine, uh, just by dragging and dropping and playing with these different block layouts. One thing though that you might want to come in here for relatively soon is organizing the basic menu for your site. So there'll be a default menu when you initially install one of these sites, but you may have other things that you want to emphasize. So when you create a new page by default, it's sort of off in limbo until you add it to a menu that tells people how to get there, right? So uh, in this header, if I want to explore it a little bit more, there is something in the upper left-hand corner that gives me the hierarchy of things. So what's embedded inside what? So inside the cover block, I have a group. Inside the group, I have a row. Inside the row, I think I have another row, which is my logo and site title. But then here is where I have the navigation. And so the navigation is a particularly important component. So I'm going to get rid of that and show you the right-hand sidebar, which shows me how the menu is structured. So if I want to add another page, let's see, actually I need to move this around a little bit so you can see. There's a little plus button down the bottom here where you can insert another page that should be on the menu. And all right. Well, I'll just take myself out of it entirely. You don't need to see me right now. So I click on this, and one of the options is to add a page link, and it will show anything that's recently been added, but I can also just type in something like if I wanted to add the members page. Um, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's the members page. And so it's adding these things down the bottom, but then from here I can actually drag and drop them into a position. If I want it to be indented, in other words, I want it to be a drop-down menu, I can indent under something else. Let's see. First I have to specify that that has a drop-down associated with it. Well, I'm not going to mess with all of this tonight. There are other tutorials that you can find out on the web for dealing with much of this. But when I mentioned that the agenda is also created using these same principles, let me just show you a little bit about what that means. So if let's see, I'm going to get out of that. So if we go back to that meeting that we were playing around with, I mentioned that I have this organize tool that is meant to help you simplify things. But basically, this is an alternate version of that block editor. And so I can also go up to the top of the page here, up to the top of the page, and click on Edit. And this is another way of working with the agenda, moving things around and editing them. So these are custom blocks they're blocks that represent agenda roles. There are blocks that represent what I call editable notes. So this is something that changes from meeting to meeting, like your theme and word of the day. So that can be edited along with editing the roles if you're the Toastmaster of the day or you're the VP of Education. And then there are other notes that are more boilerplate. We have this every time. Some instruction that goes on the agenda towards the end that says the general evaluator asks for all the feedback and then gives a few notes of their own. Those sorts of things. So I think of those as sort of the stage directions of your meeting. And the part of the reason that we don't just use just regular paragraphs is we want to be able to associate time with each of these things. So for each element that I select, there's an option over here to say how much time should that activity take up. Well, theme and word of the day don't necessarily take up a lot of time, but something like new member induction would take up time on the agenda, and you'd want to account for that. So we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to stop except for doing Q&A. And if I need to dive back in or demo something else, I can do that. Andy, I see your hand up.
I have a number of questions I put in the chat. I'll go backwards, starting with the last one at 7:55. Can you embed forms or surveys into the program?
Well, I mean, there are WordPress plugins for anything you can think of. I mean, I have some of my own tech. The RSVP Maker plugin is a component of the WordPress thing, so that's meant for guest registration. You can use it for some other things such as contact forms, but there are lots of other more specialized contact form plugins or whatever. So there might be separate instructions for all of those things.
Okay, and when the RSVP maker gathers the people's names and information that are coming to the meeting, who does that information go to? And how do you direct that?
Well, that's customizable. It can be customized per meeting. There's a place to set it in the individual meeting record, but also if you go into the settings screen for RSVP Maker, you can set up the default email or emails that you want it to go to. And I think actually for Toastmost sites, I have it defaulting to an alias, an RSVP at at myclub.toastmost.org, and the that will get forwarded on to one or more people, and so you just decide who those should be. Um, that might be something worth spending a moment on. Is how you do email forwarding in the system. So I go into, there's a section, whole section says Toastmasters email. And this is email forwarding. There is also a mailing list function where you can have a mailing list where any member can write to the other members. You can have a separate mailing list for your officers. And then forwarding is things that would be able to be published externally to the club. There, it decided to load for me after all. So if I want to put, so it's basically going to be in the format demo. So if I want to have a demo RSVP at toastmost.org, I would put in several different email addresses that I want that to forward to. And you can also use the format demo president. And the virtue of that is that if the president of the club changes, or if it's demo VPM for VP of membership, you get a new VP of membership, they're still going to get those things forwarded to them. But for that to work, I would want to double check that in the RSVP maker settings that it's set here. And of course, right now it's just set to my email address, but I can change that to be, so it would be demo RSVP at toastmost.org. And I'm sorry, my password manager is trying to help me type this. Very helpful. And I can save this. There's also a button here that says copy to all existing events and templates. If I want to make sure that this is applied everywhere, not just to the new events, I would click there and that should be applied. So that's how email is handled. And this stuff may or may not work on independently hosted sites, but I put some trouble into making sure it works on the Toastmost sites. Let's see. Okay. Mr. Horbury, is it?
Yeah, it's another Andrew. Two quick questions. One is on members. When I'm struggling to complete the site right now, but I have got members in there right now.
Okay.
And when I look at the members page, I'm seeing the mobile phone number and email address. Is that visible to anybody outside? Is that generally viewable or not?
Okay, that's a that is it is not normally. It's so there. Let's see. Wait a minute. I'm losing track of what I'm showing on screen. But if I go in here, generally that information is available to be seen by other members. So another member would be able to go in and see the whole list. They need to call somebody up or whatever, they can go in and see that. Uh, some people, some individuals may choose on their profile that they want to have more stuff visible. Maybe they want to use it as sort of like an additional promo for themselves. They want to have it linked to their LinkedIn page and all that. So where is it? Public profile. Check here to allow name, social media links, photo, and the description you provided to be displayed publicly.
Okay.
And then you have to check here to also allow your email to be displayed publicly.
Mhm.
And so if it doesn't show up there, if they haven't checked that, anybody who is not logged in and not a member of the site will not see it. They'll only see generally the officers, at least their basic information will show up at the top of the members page. And many of these things could be customized further if people come back to me and make additional requests. I mean, the beauty of this all being custom is that I can customize it.
Okay. But by default, it does not show to the outside world.
By default, it does not show to the whole world. No.
Super. Okay, and then I have one. Sorry, Lonnie. I have one other quick question, which is picking up actually on a question that Andrew asked in the chat, which is, and I think I'm encountering the same thing. When I've got a prototype site going on, I want to make lots and lots of changes, and it seems that every time I make a change, an email is sent to all the members who I've already listed on the site, alerting them to that change. Is there any way of turning that off?
No, there should not be an email sent when you make a change. There, is the change a new blog post by any chance, or is it just a website, a general website update?
I believe what was happening was I was trying to change the format of a three speech meeting. And
Are all these other people admins of the site?
two of them would be, yes.
Okay. I mean, when an admin logs into the site, I think there's the Word Defense security plugin sends a message saying that an admin just logged into this site. So it sends it to all the administrators so they know somebody is in there messing around. But I mean, for you made an edit to a page, um, that doesn't make sense. If you can forward me an example, I will try and do some detective work to figure out if something is horribly wrong.
Okay, but the quick way to solve it for me right now would be just to make only me an admin until I've got the basics sorted out, and then I want to share it with some other admins and then reinstate them as admins.
You could do that. Actually, in the WordPress security scheme, you might find it frustrating to try and demote another admin. But because if you're the first admin, if you're the person who set it up, you should be listed as primary, and you should be able to come in so this is under settings, Toastmasters, and it lists all the people who are currently admins of the site, including several fictitious people in this case. But I can remove Abraham Lincoln, and I can make sure that I am listed as the primary administrator so that nobody can kick me out, and I'll make that update. So hopefully that
How are
helps.
you getting to that admin page? Because I'm in settings right now. I'm in general settings. And if I scroll down, I can see administration email address, which is my email address, but I can't see how to add an admin.
Let's see. Okay. I think this is the screen you're talking about.
Yep.
So under settings, there's multiple screens. This is the general one. Um, but underneath that, there is a setting screen for RSVP Maker,
Yep.
which is one of the important components. There's one for Toastmasters, and there's also a separate one for the Toastmasters application form, and it handles some of the things about setting up your dues schedule if
Mhm.
you're going to use the online dues payment functionality or online application and payment functionality. You would set it on that screen. But I was on the Toastmasters screen, and so this is
Got it. Yeah.
where there's some shortcuts to some other functions, but this is where you would set your officers list,
Yeah.
and some of those forwarding addresses that I was talking about. I mean, you got to have somebody designated as the VPE or VPE. My club dash VPE at toastmost.org isn't going to work unless you've gone in and specified who is in that role. And then there is the make somebody else an administrator.
Right.
Manager is sort of my own invention. It's sort of in between editor and administrator. So a manager can also manage the user list,
Yeah.
but can't necessarily access this screen. Um, and there's a few other, there's a bunch of other options under here.
Great.
So, the menu is probably too complex, and I've made it more complex over time. Um, but that is a basic structure for WordPress sites, is that often a plugin will have a settings screen down in the settings section. Although that's not 100% consistent either. Sometimes, there'll be a menu, I think like for Yoast SEO, for example, uh, they have their own setting screen under the Yoast SEO section. So it can go either way. I think in here I have a link that will get you to the same place. If you go to Toastmasters Administration, there's all these screens here, and down the bottom is one for settings.
Super. Great. Thank you.
All right. If Lonnie has a question, I definitely want to answer it.
Thank you,
She's
David.
smarter than I am. It has taught me a few things.
I was wondering, the enable mobile app page, is that available to all members? Can,
Yes.
okay, and then would you consider making that a block so that people could put it into a page to make it regularly available for their membership, or into a like a forum post, or I'm sorry, a front page post, obviously with some restrictions on who could see it, but
Sure. Well, it would only be displayed for logged in members
great.
because the QR code is obviously cute. It's uh, tied to your identity, right? It's this thing that's going to allow, so you don't want somebody else being able
Yeah,
to log in as you. Um, I mean, and I have paid some attention to uh, security here. I haven't gone too crazy about it because I'm not that concerned that people are going to hack your website or hack your apps so that they can sign up for roles in your meetings. But
as long
but
as they
but but
show up,
there
I'm good.
but there is the option of sending email and stuff. So we have to be a little bit concerned. So far, I'm not too concerned. I don't let people change their password through the app or anything like that, or their website password through the app anyway. Um, but yes, that's consider it as something that will be on my to-do list. For you, anything, my dear. Uh, um,
I'd love to get more of my members to use that, and I know that they're used to interacting with the front end more than the back end.
yep, yep, sure. And also, I guess it prevents it from being as hidden. Well, I mean, there is, well, I think you've customized the front end too. Um, but in the default front end agenda, there is a promo that shows up that says click here to get to that page. But at any rate, yes, that's definitely doable. And actually, but before I wrap up, I do have a selfish thing that I want to talk about, just to put it in your mind. I would love it if some of this stuff is interesting, impressive, to you, if you'd like to see it grow and be better. I really would appreciate you going and talking to your district leadership about it. Um, Maybe trying to get me invited in to give a workshop, but also, um, funding this thing has been a little bit of a challenge, and trying to keep it in the black has been a little bit of a challenge, because sometimes, when uh, the server has been overloaded for some reason, I've panicked and gone in and bought more server capacity. And so that bill, that comes along every 6 months has tended to climb. And right now I'm trying to see if I can ratchet it back down, because you're supposed to be able to ratchet cloud resources up, but you're also supposed to bring them down, and figure out how I can make some of the database queries more efficient and somehow stretch more performance out of the site. But also, in the beginning, I did want to make these websites free. I wanted to find a sponsor that was interested in advertising to this audience, and maybe have, an ad in the footer of the site or somewhere on the site. And maybe people who didn't want that could still pay for the service, because they don't want advertising on their club website. Um, or funding from districts apparently is part of how Easy Speak has financed itself over the years. Maybe a district just finances, that their members can get free accounts. If I could get a district to chip in $1,000, I'd be happy to make it free for everybody. Um, and take my chances. If I could get some sponsor, I told somebody $4,500 I could make the thing free for everybody. I might come to regret that, because I just talked about the server resources ratcheting up and the price ring ratcheting up. But, for $5,000, maybe I could make it free for everybody for a year and invite more people in, and, provide the service more widely. Um, so, one or two things is either grow the number of paying customers or find external sources of budgeting. And so anybody who is interested in somehow being helpful with, ideas or introductions or funding, if you happen to have access to funding, I'd love to get your ideas. Maybe not right this moment, because we've gone well past an hour. And I definitely want to give people the chance to sign off. But, but I would like to make this, available to more people. I have, early on, I did knock on the door of Toastmasters International, the board, and they basically said, well, we already have this thing. We have free toast, and that's good enough. And Lonnie's shaking her head, because she thinks it's not good enough either. But she's a WordPress pro, which gives her a little bit different perspective on things. Um, one of my challenges is to try and make something that I think is simple, simple enough for folks who don't necessarily consider themselves to be that technical, to get in and, build out the website, use the tools productively. If you just have feedback on how things could be simplified, or, things that should be dropped off the menu, um, please feel free to write me an email. Um, give me feedback after the call. Does anybody have immediate feedback or ideas about how to make this a bigger and better thing going forward? Um,
I do. Actually, I've been meaning to send you an email about this because you inquired. I think with the WordPress multi-site, with you hosting, I know you have an option to host district sites through the platform as well as member sites. Does that provide a unified login So could people that have a club site within the district also have limited access to some district utilities?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
because
absolutely. I mean,
uh,
that's something that I often saw as the potential is let's move your district website in this direction. And there are some I mentioned. I mean, I only have one district that is using the service at the moment, but I did build out some custom utilities for them. For example, when you toggle it and say it's a district website instead of president, it's going to say district director, and there are forwarders for all those people too. So that
that's nice.
email forwarding system comes into effect. The ability to have group emails between those district officers, uh, email
I've
discussion groups.
I've
So
seen with District 100, they're actually trying to they wanted to heavily gamify the Toastmasters year for the clubs in the district, but the barrier that they ran into specifically was you can't really gamify things unless everybody has a login because you have to
right.
have a way to associate achievements with individuals. But if a district were to go all in on, using both the club and the district level site, then they could have a centralized gamification. Might be worth looking into building out an integration with some kind of gamification.
Okay.
And,
Well, I
and
want your help on that.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I did it for my site and be happy to show you what I've done.
Uh, yeah. Lonnie is from the Dungeons and Toast site for anybody who doesn't know. So, uh, role-playing enthusiasts who are also Toastmasters enthusiasts. So, a very, very different snazzy site. And uh, one of the ways that she uses all the tracking of statistics and roles is as part of a point system where people get to show off based on how much they've participated, um, how they rank in the club. So
Great.
yeah, it's fun stuff. And yeah, if actually if we could get one district to really embrace it and be a model, then that might be the start of something bigger for this. Um, and also probably what I would do there is actually set it up as a separate WordPress multi-site instance from Toastmost. So it would be, and that would make it perform better too. To be that district and all the clubs in their district are invited to come in and set up a site. And as you say, they could have sort of community services available. Um, and I have worked on a little bit of sort of syndication of data between sites. So my home club has an independently hosted club website, but my speech records are synchronized between that site and Toastmost. Um, so things like that are possible. We could grow out.
Just thinking about which
It's a
districts
beautiful
might
vision. I don't know how.
just think about which districts might go for that. Maybe one of the reformed districts,
Uh-huh.
because suddenly they'll have a different constituency that they'll need to speak to. So maybe this would be an opportunity for them to go and speak to that
Right.
new grouping.
Well, I think one of my challenges is I don't know that I can be the person who creates the code, champions the code, and is the salesperson for the whole project. So, if I can enlist some of you to be kind of ambassadors and to make introductions, do some of that outreach yourself, that would really be priceless to me. And then when you need something from me, you'll be able to say, "Hey, Dave, remember that time you said you would help?" Yeah. Okay.
David,
Anyway, so
perhaps one thing that you might consider is, certainly districts are harder not to try to knock through because they have organized leadership and the trio.
yeah,
What does not have that kind of roadblock would be the undistricted clubs, and there's somewhat 28, 30 of them in that category. And
yeah,
I know that, from the contest that we held or champion in online presenters, you had pretty good success working with those kinds of clubs. So since they are not in any specific district that can be a constraint, you might have more access to the undistricted clubs.
Maybe, but also I'm going after the district as, district has a bigger budget, and has connections to just a larger number of people, and so it's definitely some. I mean, my my friend Lois Margolin went on to be district director, but she didn't talk to me about this stuff all that much. While by the time she got to that point, she was actually the person who went out from our home club to a district event, long before she was district director, and said, "You should see this thing that Dave Carr's working on." And I'm not sure it would have gone beyond just a one-off hack for our club if that hadn't happened. So I gotta talk to Lois again. See
You
see
have
if
the candidates corner on Friday,
yeah.
June
Okay.
25th.
All right. Well, anyways, I keep saying I'm going to wrap this up, but so actually, Margaret, I don't know if you've said anything on meeting. Is there anything that I can answer for you or?
No, I just was curious about how this all worked together, and I will mention it to our crew because we are going to change. We were on Easy Speak, and I don't like Easy Speak, so we are going to change to a different system. I will mention this one besides
Okay.
Free Toast. I will
Okay.
mention it. Oh, will you be sending this recording out?
I will. Yeah.
Okay. I will also make sure my crew gets this.
All right. Well,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's time for the big ending. Yes, it's a game changer. Game changer. So, all right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your attendance, and yes, I'll send out some follow-up.